I'd like to introduce our next speaker is Dr. Enoch Bergman, and potentially going to be our entertainment for this afternoon as well. Dr. Enoch Bergman is a veterinarian from Esperance in Western Australia, and he travels across the state providing veterinary services and advice to southern beef producers and seed stock producers. He was the president of the Australian Cattle Veterinarians from 2014 to 2016. He's certainly a passionate advocate for the Australian beef sector, and we're quite keen to listen to his presentation today on building a better cow, and we hope to look at some practical data that he has generated from a recent MLA trial he's involved in. Thank you.
Hey guys. If you do get around to the Vetiquinol stand, Sophia's kind of sandbagging us a bit. She's done an enormous amount of work in the north on the Bos Indicus breeding program, so don't talk to me, talk to her, and talk to Gabe. I'm actually intermission, so if any of you guys need to get some popcorn or take a leak or whatever, go ahead and shoot through, and I'll walk you through this. So just a little bit of background on kind of, I guess this talk's really about how I moved to Esperance, and when I moved there, we weren't really doing much AI, and I've quite successfully been able to get a lot of my producers to integrate fixed-time AI into their commercial cow herds, and why I think it's going to drive their profitability. So I grew up in a town of about 12 people. The town was called Wild Horse. They really should have called it Dirty Chicken because there wasn't much going on. And I went to vet school because everybody said, geez, Enoch, you're pretty good at school. Go become a vet and come home. So anyway, I got bogged in Australia. This isn't a congenital speech impediment from getting dropped on my head. I am a SEPO, and I've been here about 15 years. So anyhow, building a better cow. So this is a talk that I give to my producers. There's also some dot in it. So what makes a good cow? Well, a good cow is going to calve early as a 3-year-old. She's going to deliver a healthy calf within the first month of the calving season. And that's really important for a young cow. Young cows, as Gabe said, 50 to 55 days before they start cycling again. So we need them to get it done in that first 30 days of the calving season because they've only got about 85 days up their sleeve. But they have to have done this having already weaned a calf, and they need to be in good shape. If they're in poor body condition, or worse, if they haven't weaned a calf already, according to a fella in the U.S., he reckons it takes 3 to 5 years to make up for an animal that doesn't get pregnant as a heifer. So I'd say to my clients, don't get married to your heifers. I know you've looked at them all day, and maybe you've got your mates to help you look, and you picked them out when they're about 9 months old, and it's a bit like trying to pick your significant other, your wife, when she's a 3-year-old. You're probably going to fuck it up, all right? So it's the same with looking at your heifers. Don't get married to them. Mate more of them. It's kind of like dating. Date a lot of them. The ones that you cull, that's okay. Don't get married to them. Marry the ones that you keep. And because the most important driver is really reproduction. And I mean, again, and I say that when I preg test, there's so many Freemartins that I find, and they don't look very feminine, as we all know. We mostly just pick the ones that are a bit older and a little bit bigger. So how are we going to get there? Well, often I talk about reproductive management, growing them out, mating, critical mating weights, trying to keep them growing all the way through to calving, talk about reproductive diseases, talk about microminerals, but I'm going to skip through all that, and we're just going to talk about the back end of it. So back in the day, we used to join, like historically back in the dream time, to calve as 3-year-olds, and some people still do in areas where the feed's pretty poor and we can't get them up to size. I was talking to a fellow from Papua New Guinea, and that's what they have to do there. You know, they're kind of limited in their feed stuffs. Why do they do that? Well, because it's made things seem a lot easier. They're bigger, so you get less dystocia. They bred back better. There's less competition for resources because they're growing and growing. It seemed to work, but it's just not economically viable where I live and a lot of southern beef producers. Our dirt's too expensive. We've really got to crank this system up because you don't break even until about 4 years of feeding before that first calf's sold if you made him as a 3-year-old. And in that time, you've racked up about $1,200 in feed costs. Alrighty, so what Gabe talked about is and this fella in the U.S., Cushman, he came up with 62 days after calving is when they start cycling in cows. Heifers take 20 to 30 days longer, and why is that? Because they're cutting teeth, they're still growing, they've got competition for resources. So the Angus breed, and a lot of what I talk about is Angus, the Angus breed has brought their gestational age, calving used to be 283 days, they've brought it forward 4 days down to 279 days. So let's just say 280 to keep the maths easy. If a cow takes 55 days, plus 30, that's 85. 230 plus 85 is 365, right? So if you think of it, if it takes a heifer 85 days from when she calves to start cycling, and we want them all cycling, as Gabe said, which of the heifers are going to be calving if you mate your heifers the same time as your cows? If you mate the heifers the same time as your cows, the heifer that calved on day 0 of the calving season, on the first day of calving season, she is on average is going to be cycling. The rest of them are not when the bull goes in. And that's why we get, in the US, we call it sophomore slumps. You know, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. That's what we call as high schoolers. Sophomore slumps that second year. And when I moved to Esperance, a lot of my guys were joining their cows for 3 months, and they're joining their heifers for 3 months. So let's just talk about 3 cycles. So you got your cows, and you got your, let's say you got a 9-week joining on your cows. Now if you go and join your, so I need another chair. Anyone want to give me a chair? So if you got your heifers here in the background, and you're joining them for the same time of 9 weeks, and it takes them 85 days to get their shit together after they involute their uterus and start cycling. Those girls that got pregnant here, when the bulls go back out again, these girls right here, see this real thin slice that you can't see? They're cycling. The rest of these are going to come on heat over time for their first cycle where they're actually going to be susceptible to falling pregnant. So what we want to do is try to prime this system. So talking to my guys, I was like, man, we need to change this up. Don't get married to your cows. Don't try to get them all pregnant. I mean, there's a guy named, I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of Kit Farrow, but Kit Farrow grew up very close to where I grew up, where my family homesteaded. When I was a little kid, I'd sit on, he called them bull sessions. And he was just a little breeder at the time. We'd sit in his barn and talk about this stuff. And now he's, I think, the number 8 breeder in the US for selling bulls. Anybody know Kit Farrow? Pretty neat guy, eh? And one time he came and talked to my vet school, and he said, all right, students, he said, what's better, 95% conception rate in heifers or 85? And everyone's like, oh, 95. And I went, 85. And he goes, fucking Bergman, shut up. And he's right. You don't want to get them all pregnant. This is a test. This is their first exam, and it's like your new employee. When you got a new employee, what do you do with them? You go out with them. You show them where the gates are. You show them how to take the header front off. Then after you've taught them stuff, which is like the heifer you look after, if he rips it off in the gate post, you sack his ass. And that's what it's got to be with the heifers. Look after them, get them grown out, give them a challenge, 6 weeks at most, and if they get pregnant, great. Plus, I want to bring them forward a little bit. So let's take these heifers and let's make them for 6 weeks instead of 9 weeks, all right? So let's budget on getting 85% pregnant. This is what I used to tell my guys before I got into more AI. All righty, so if 85% of them have gotten pregnant, the other 15% are gone. They haven't cut teeth yet. They're valuable animals. We can short feed them, we can grass finish them, we can do all sorts of stuff with them. They're valuable animals. If we'd done what we did historically, these animals here are going to be empty. Now they've cut teeth, and we're going to get cow price for that animal. We've lost almost 35% on a carcass weight value on it. So let's join them short. So we got 60-24. That means we got 70% of them pregnant before the cycle. We got 70% of our heifers cycling as first calvers now. You following me? Instead of 0%. Is that great or is that great? That's freaking great. All right, let's move on. We're talking about AI, aren't we? All right. Anybody need to go to the bathroom yet? So it takes them 20 to 30 days longer. Heifers that conceive at the same time as cows will calve at the same time, but will conceive about 20 to 30 days later the following year. Heifers that get pregnant late are often empty. So using, Gabe lent me these slides, so that's what we're trying to combat. We're trying to get these girls sorted out. So this is from Cushman back in 2013, a slide from Cliff Lamb. So they looked at these they did a regressional look at the Meat Research Center. It was a twinning program. I think it was about 12,000 heifers, and they looked at them and they said, did you calve in the first 21 days, the second 21 days, or the third 21 days? First, second, third. And this is the flow-on effect. So see the conception rate there, we're up in much higher between those in the first 21 days in the mid-90s, around 90 and around 85. And that's a carry-on effect that keeps following through, and it makes sense, doesn't it? So if you look at it from a survival curve standpoint, they got one more calf out of these girls. Further, the calves that they did produce were heavier, because if they calve earlier, as Gabe said, their calves are heavier because they're a little bit older. So it's just this flow-on effect. We're trying to set these heifers up to succeed. If we get a heifer in calf late, that's a tragedy, because she's either going to be empty and decreased value next year, or she's going to calve late again next year, conceivably. We don't want that to happen. We've got to gear this system and bring it forward. And I found this on Google. It's amazing what you can find on Google. I was just looking for a cow on a pirate ship. So a cow spends its entire life on a pirate ship. So that's the farm, and that's the abattoir. We've got an abattoir in Esperance called Shark Lake. So that's Shark Lake, you see? So if that heifer gets pregnant late in the calving season, she's going to end up in the piss next year. And I don't want that. I want her on the boat. I want her, swabbing the decks and things like that. So how are we going to get this to happen? Well, this is talking about what I talked about a minute ago. We need to buy them more time. So if we had 13 months in a year, if we could slow the rate at which the Earth traversed around the sun, that'd be great. We'd all die a lot younger. You work that out later. The shorter gestation, could we do that? Yes, we actually are doing that with various breeds, and Gabe touched on that with the Bos Indicus. Could we calve 1 month later every year? Sure, if we had consistent feed year round. Are we going to do that? Hell no, you're going to drop calves. So, we try to calve with our resources, don't we? But we can for their second mating. And this is the driver. Mate those heifers a bit early, mate them shorter, let the mating program pick it out. So if you join heifers for less time than the cows, it's a good selection tool for reproductive efficiency, releases a few extra bulls as well. So for some of my guys, we might use some bulls on the heifers, and then what ends up happening with bulls when they go to work? They're just like kids at the pub, they glass each other when they get into the Bundy. So these girls are done. These guys still got, another 6 weeks to go. So, this guy's glass, you're gone. All right, you can slot in here. So it releases a few bulls. That's handy. That's good. Saves us a bit of coin. Easier heifer calving management, because let's talk about 100 heifers. Or let's talk about 1,000. 100's easier. I'm not very good at math. 3% of your heifers are going to get pregnant every day, right? So the first 21 days of the calving season, you're going to get 3 calves a day. And that's kind of fun. You go out, you pull some calves. It's great. The next 21 days, you got 1 calf per day, right? 24% divided by 21. You with me? Say 40% left, 60% of 40, 24. You with me? You come out, 20, hold up. All right, 1% per day. Next 3 weeks, you get 9.5% over 3 weeks. So now you got 1 calf every other day. Now your kid's got footy practice. You're down here and you're trying to seed where I come from, and you're getting 1 calf every 3 or 4 days. Are you going to watch them? These are the late ones too. They're getting a little bit bigger. So then you got a heifer in the morning who's got a hip lock calf hanging out of it, and that's bad. You got a dead calf and a dead heifer. Keep it short. Sell those girls. Don't get married to them. Unless you're Mormon, you can marry as many as you like. The best part about it is it buys the heifer more time to get back in calf. That's the driver. So when I started in Esperance, that was my big driver, trying to get guys to join for 6 weeks. And I got most guys doing it. So the idea is I Photoshop these. I'm quite talented at times. I know I sound like I've been dropped on my head. But let's get them to calve early. And so then the next year when they go to a longer joining, they got a longer dance floor. They can go forward, they can go back. Because it's a bit like roulette. You know that not so smart friend of yours that when you go down to the casino and he goes, God dang, man, it's been red 16 times in a row. Run up there and bet on black. It's still 50-50, right? Well, not that because you got the greens. It's 60% for these girls, so even if they're cycling, Yahtzee, son of a gun. We get about 100% conception. It's just the embryos don't stick around. So we lose about 35-40% of them. They come back on heat, right? So you got 60%. They lost. All right, so they step further down on that's my plank. That's the piss down there. Roll again. Shucks. What's the likelihood of that? 16%, right? Miss it again. What's the likelihood of that? 5%. So 1 out of 20 times, they're going to fall that far back. So the further we can get them over here, because if they miss cycling that time, now they've only got 2 steps and they're in the drink. They got a 15% drop chance. What if we join them like we talked about historically? Well, frick, they're probably only going to get 1 chance and they're in the piss. Do you follow me? I know I'm beating a dead horse here. You didn't know I was a horse vet as well. So the short and early joining, empty heifers are marketable. We can market the empty heifers with the remainder of the yearlings. If you do grassies and Esperance. But a lower conception rate, you're going to get lower conception rates than you do with a longer joining. It's pretty obvious. So you got to have your ducks in a row. You got to make sure your bulls are right. You got to make sure they've grown out properly. You got them on a good plan of nutrition. You've dealt with all your reproductive diseases, and you're managing your seasonal conditions. And so a couple of my guys were pretty nervous about it. So they said, hey, let's join them longer. It's like, all right, let's sync them. So what we did then is we gave them 2 shots of prostaglandin, and then put the bulls in at a rate of 5%. And if you do it a month in advance, you got 1 heat here. 3 weeks later, you get another heat here, and then you can bugger some of these guys off over here. Does that make sense? So we can condense, essentially, a 9-week joining into a 7-week joining. But you need lots of bull power at the front end. Because it's a little bit like a BNS, and that's the photo I got for a BNS. I found some other photos, but I don't know if it's a PG talk here today. So you need plenty of first cycle bull power. So that got me thinking, Right, so I'm going to these are all the girlfriends I've ever had. I photoshopped them together. But what's semen's goal? Let's talk about semen for a second. To get that high-value genetic material to the appropriate destination, how many does it take? 1. You can get there. They work together, so that's why motility's got to be a certain level. If that's in your microscope, that's bad. So that's motility. What's morphology? Has anybody in the taxi? So if only 1 goes to the airport, and if frickin' De Niro's in there, that's bad. So you don't want that. So that's morphology testing. So that's checked. We need to check that with our bulls, our backup bulls. We need also the semen we buy. If it's licensed, they've done all that. All right, so I was thinking, well, heck, if I'm going to synchronize them, I'm already syncing them. I might as well do fixed time. Why? Because it gives me access to superior genetics, better genetics than I can afford to buy. I can manage dystocia very proactively because the bulls I buy in a straw are usually proven, so they're higher accuracy as far as calving eggs. If you bought 10 bulls and you were chasing IMF, for instance,
and the average was where you wanted it to be on all of them. Let's say they were all 4.2. Some of them are going to be down there and some of them are going to be there. And it's not going to hurt your production system too much because on the average, you're going to get what you want. When you're chasing something like calving ease and birth weight, if it turns out he's 2 standard deviations on the wrong side of the fence, that can hurt. So that's the idea of accuracy. Now, there's a lot of studs that go to a lot of effort to make sure they have high accuracy bulls. And if you're a stud here, I encourage you to do as many measurements as you can. That's really important. Breed plan's a beautiful thing. And with genomics, it's getting even better. But there's no doubt a proven bull in a straw is a lot more reliable. Kind of like me. I'm supposed to be at a place at 10 o'clock. I probably talked 3 hours at the first place. I'm unreliable. So Access Superior Genetics manage dystocia more proactively with proven bulls. No heat detection, which is awesome because my cow cockies don't like heat detecting. They're busy people. No heat detection means more matings. So yeah, you'll probably get a better conception rate if I heat detected. But because I'm using fixed time AI, I get more matings, so I end up with more pregnancies. Frozen taxis, AI. I thought you'd like that one. So why AI over short joining? Well, again, I can capitalize on my superior genetics. So I say sometimes to my farmers, I say, like to this gentleman right here, Beef Breeding Services, you got a few cows. How many more years are you going to be raising cows? Let's say 30 years to make the maths easy for me because I'm not very smart. 30 years. If you don't keep the heifers out of your heifers, you've got 10 rungs up the intergenerational ladder. If you keep the heifers out of your heifers, you got 15 rungs up the ladder. Does that make good sense to you guys? And a lot of my guys, when I started AI, and even I just ran this trial a minute ago, I said, oh, would you mark those calves from the AI? And he goes, oh, no. I said, well, you need to keep the heifers out of them. He goes, oh, you don't keep heifers out of heifers. I said, why do people say that? Well, they don't have as much milk, but they've been usually terminally crossing them to low birth weight, low weaning weight bulls. Self-fulfilling prophecy. You get these little dink calves, they blame the heifers, they don't get back in calf, they blame them again. These are nice girls, let's look after them. Those progeny, like I had one cow cocky who didn't believe in it, his son took over the farm, we finally AI'd. He said, Dad, you come help me pick out the replacement heifers. So he went through, picked out the replacement heifers, got married to them, so these are the ones I want to keep. And he said, Dad, how many do you think you got from out of the heifers that we AI'd? And he goes, oh, it wouldn't be many, you know, they're calves, heifers' calves are shit. He said, Dad, you picked every single one of them. That's cool, eh? So now he's a believer. So shorter, more predictable heifer calving, reduced heifer obstetrical intervention, and we're setting these heifers up to succeed. You guys seen this slide? This is another one from Cliff Lamb. That's chickens in 1957. That's chickens in 2010. Now you go show that to someone outside a grocery store that's not in agriculture, what are they going to tell you is the reason? It has never been legal to feed hormones to chickens in the US, ever. Never. They've never had hormones. That's 100% genetics. Isn't it amazing? But that's what people jump at, isn't it? They go, you're just filling them full of hormones. That's just freaking good breeding, folks. It's freaking awesome. Want to see something else awesome? Here's the American dairy population. They used to have 25 million of these dairy cows running around. 25 million times 4 is 100 million teats to pull a day, sometimes twice. That's 200 million teats. That's a lot of teats. Now we're down to about 10 million. But what has our milk production done? We used to produce 5 million liters of milk, and now we're producing 25 million. That's awesome. That's the power of genetics. And so if you're torching your best genetics, which better be your replacement heifers, if your replacement heifers are not your best genetics, you're going backwards. If you're terminally crossing your heifers, what the hell are you in this game for? Let's mate these girls. Let's make something out of them. All right. So in my business, I wasn't doing anything, and our practice software only goes back to 2012. So I just looked this up for Sophia. So I was doing nothing when I came to Esperance, and now I'm on about 5,500 cows around Esperance, or heifers primarily. So my guys are believing it. And the cool thing is they get addicted to it. They get those calves and they come out and they go, oh, this is awesome. And I've got a lot of good help from a lot of semen suppliers that have helped me over the years. Alrighty, so that normal return to estrus. These Q-mates, what I like about them is that I can reuse them. So when I put them in heifers, I'll use them the first time, and then I'll have the cow cocky wash them. I'll say, take them home, pull them out, give them a rinse off, and then wash them in your neighbor's washing machine. They're not going to hurt your washing machine. It all comes off anyway. And then I get them to mark those pods with a set of ear notch and pliers, you know, like the ones you use for BVD testing, or use a set of scissors or whatever, so you know that it's a used pod. And then every time I re-AI my cows, I put one new pod on. So initially your upfront cost on the Q-mates, depending on who you're buying them from, is X. But the reloads are quite cheap, and so I really like that flexibility of it. Also, as Gabriel Bowe said, if you're doing Bos Indicus stuff, you can buy blanks, and you can put a blank on there. So I do a bit of that as well. So my guys are pretty well married to these. Once you're into it, you're just in that cycle of replacing pods. And what you can do with these Q-mates, with that progesterone, is salvage your superior genetics. So these cows that are getting a bit late, you know, they're starting to get towards, you know, the lake. They're down there towards the end. They've calved late. Even at 55 days, they might not start cycling till here. You know, bulls come in here. if we can bring those girls forward, it's kind of like pulling up your pants. You're just continually pulling them back, trying to get them to calve as early as you can, and that has a flow-through impact for you on your weaning weights as well as their subsequent conception rates. That makes good sense, eh? So that's Gabe's slide right there. So then guys go, oh, but it's pretty, it's pretty hard, it's pretty annoying, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty expensive. So I'll say, well, what does it cost you to use a bull? And nobody really ever told me what it costs to use a bull. Hey, I love bulls. A lot of my clients are seed stock producers, but what does a bull cost? Well, let's look at a bull used for 6 weeks. So it's going to be your purchase price minus your cull price, divided by his longevity. What's average for Angus bulls in Australia? 3 years? Yep, 3 years. Some bulls break down first year, some at 4, so 3. So divide that by 3, plus maintenance. You could also say opportunity loss, 1.5 cows or calves, or 1.35 because 90% of 1.5 is 1.35, meaning you get 1.5 cows exposed, you get 1.35 calves. But let's just say maintenance. Maintenance about $400 a year for an Angus down where I live, other than the fixed costs, like your ute and stuff. So that's another $600 divided by the service booking. So let's say 30 to 40 divided by conception. So at 4,500 divided by 3 is $1,500 a year, plus 600 is 2,100. 2,100 divided by 30, divided by 84%, which is expected rate for 6 weeks, works out to $83 a calf. That's the cost of your bull. Have any of you guys done that before? It's a good investment if it's good genetics. So what's AI cost? Oh man, it's going to be a lot of trouble. And well, synchrony is going to cost you around $20. Semen's going to cost you with like, for instance, ABS. Fletch there in the room provides me a lot of good semen. The semen's around $20. Your technician time's around $10, and you divide that by conception rate. So even if you lowball yourself at 50%, that's about $100. So people say, well, I didn't want to do it. Well, there's some other things we've got to factor in here. So like this is Leonardo. He's a bull I used last year in this MLA trial. So he's at 400 days, which is when we're kind of getting rid of our grassies. He's, what number we got there, team? 96? So breed average is 79. So what's that, 17 kilos. So he's going to pass half that on, right? The dam's going to give her half. So he's going to contribute an extra 7.5 over the average Angus bull. The average Angus bull, right? Of all the animals that went into breed plan that year. So the synchrony is going to bring him forward an average of 21 days, or an average of 10.5 days, so half of 21. So by synchronizing them, they're all going to come on heat these 3 weeks. And in these 3 weeks, we're going to drag both of these groups forward an average of 10.5 days. So that's going to be a bit of weight. The gestational length, so if we go back to old mate, he's -7 for gestational length, so that's going to give us another 3.5 days, roughly, so another 3.5 kilos. Curve bender bulls produce significantly more kilos than usual safe live bulls. So when I do my AI programs and I buy semen in bulk from my friends, I normally buy in the top 5% for calving ease, try to get in the top 1% for birth, and then in the top 10% for 200 and 400 a day. So I'm curve bending, low birth weight, high weaning weight, and preferably a low mature cow weight if I can get it. So if we just said that bull we just looked at, Leonardo, versus the average bull, the average Angus bull that year, that's another 8.5 kilos. So in total, we got 22 kilos, and I think Gabe showed bigger figures than that. So that's $66. So if you take 66 off your 100, now you're looking at $83 for a bull for 6 weeks versus 1 round of AI for $34. Do you follow me? And you can back them up, reduce your bulls down to 2% instead of 3, so reduce your bull cost by a third. You could resync them. So for a lot of guys, I put a device back in, resync them, as Gabe had said. There's lots of options there. So it's not that expensive. The interesting thing is when I preg them, they're a totally different animal because they've been handled. They've been acclimated to humans. And people that comment in this MLA trial is that when they go to go out and mark down which calves were born, they say, geez, the AI ones are quite quiet. So most people, when they've done with it, they like it. So if you haven't done it, give it a crack. It's a good thing. Here's some stuff done by Rogers. So they took a bull and they milked him. So one, they used the bull, and then the other group, they fixed time AI and then put him out. And it worked out to 17 kilos difference. So it's just the advantage of that synchrony. And we'll talk about the trial that I did with MLA pretty soon. So with my guys, I'll do a 2-round AI program. Those are Estrotechs if you haven't seen them before. I was at a dairy giving a talk, and I stuck one of those on a Jack Russell, and no bullshit, it was gone for half an hour and something got to it. I was like, I'll be damned. I kind of think the cocky might have... So 2-round AI, fixed time AI, followed by resynchrony, a second AI to heat detection, or 1-round AI backed up by 2% bulls. Some of my guys will AI them once, wait 10 days, and put the bull in for 9 weeks, and then when I preg, we sell the late ones. And some of my guys are getting to where they're doing 2 rounds AI. They still back them up. They sell the late ones, and they're just keeping the AI progeny. But there's more. Cool. So if you used to terminally cross your heifers, and I hope you guys didn't, because you seem a lot smarter than the West Australians where I'm from. Sorry, West Australians. I can't go home now. Shit. So if heifers from heifers are retained, that means we don't have to mate all our cows to get our replacements, right? So we can terminally cross some of our old cows. And I'm a fan of heterosis and hybrid vigor. So we can draft the cow herd, breed our first-rate cows to our good bulls. So I'll say spend the money, get some really good black bulls. Again, Angus-centric for me. 1 round of AI, kickstart those lactation on estrus cows conceivably, and breed my second-rate cows to terminals. That's the biggest, apparently biggest cattle beast in the world. It's a steer in Scotland. So say no to Euro cows as breeders. I love frickin' Euro bulls as terminals. Frickin' love them. They are awesome. Yeah, because terminal, out the door. But where I live, these son of a guns are so slow maturing. If there's too much Euro content where I come from in my females, I just can't get them back in calf. But man, can they produce some kilos of beef. So the idea is to pick your heifers before you're born. So I'm the same age as this guy. Do you guys remember him? Who's this guy? Macaulay Culkin? I wanted to be him. He's going to have chicks. He's going to have cars. He's going to have a fat time. He's actually a heroin addict. So picking your heifers when they're 8 months old, see, it might not go like you plan. Always look to the dam. If someone said to me, do you want to go out with Elle Macpherson's daughter? Am I going to ask what Elle Macpherson's daughter looks like? Someone informed me she's got a 9-year-old daughter, so I got to quit with that joke. But look to the dam. And my dad told me that when I went to college. The worst advice I ever got. That's a hard thing to work into a date. So what's your mother look like? Why do you ask? Oh, I was talking to Pop. My mother and father are my auntie and uncle. You work that out. So I always looked at them, and she's 50 years old in that photo. That's pretty awesome. And hey, good bulls, man. Get the good bulls. Yeah, you bet. Let's keep this balanced. Like there you go. You got these guys. They didn't appear to be. They were pretty innocuous, weren't they? They almost shut us down. So that's a red Angus. That's a blonde Aquitaine. What about this cute little bastard? Oh, yeah, he's bloody huge. So, yeah, just because they look good when they're little, don't be fooled. Yeah, so a couple of my guys in Esperance, they were on us. So take the AI challenge. So we AI'd half, and the others went to the bull. Now, these are extreme cases, and this is what led to the MLA trial a little bit. So 1 round of AI, wait 10 days, throw them in the same bull that the others went with. And the first guy, blow me down, he got 100%, and I know it's small numbers, and he got 74% on the ones that were straight to the bull for 7 weeks. So AI, 6 weeks back up after 10 days wait. So that's pretty cool. This guy, similar, he got 92% on, again, 6-week backup after waiting a week. Versus 6 weeks with the same bulls, 63%. So this got this MLA PDS happening. So we're talking to MLA. We've got a group called A-Sheep, and they decided to have a beef subunit that we're calling A-Beef. And so what I pitched at MLA is I want to see if we can demonstrate to people the value of integrating fixed-time AI into their commercial heifer mating programs. So we hijacked some of my clients. So we had guys that were kind of like, oh, Enoch, that's pretty cool what you're doing, but we're not that interested. So I said, MLA is going to pay for part of it. And I said, oh, we might be interested. So we did it 50-50 based on the last digit of the ear tag. Now, just as a quick aside, and Gabe talked about apples and oranges. If someone said to me, I'm thinking about using multi-min, I go, what do you do now? I do nothing. I go, so what are you going to do? Oh, I might give multi-min to everything. I go, well, you're over here, and that's over there. Why don't you come here and do half of them get multi-min based on the last digit of the ear tag, and the other half don't, and see what you find. Prove all things is what Paul said. So that's something I've always been a big fan of. That's how I did my validation or tested the PestiGuard for BVD. So I'm a big fan of doing that. So that was the idea of this, based on the last digit ear tag. So 50% of the heifers got synced. 10 days later, they went with their sisters. So we took the heifers, you girls got synchronized, and you got AI'd on the day that you girls went to the bulls. 10 days later, you girls joined these girls with the same bulls. And then we follow them through. So it's going to be pretty cool. So what are we looking at? Conception rate. What are we looking at? Calving rate. What are we looking at? Calving date, dystocia, weaning weights, and rebreeding rates. Now this is just finishing up now, so I've got some preliminary data for you guys, and what I've got I think is pretty interesting. Thank you very much for help. So ABS provided us some bulls inexpensively. Richard White from Performance Genetics provided us a bull as well. So we got Broken Bow and Leonardo from ABS, and we got the General, Aryvale General from Richard White. And Veterinary helped us out with Q-mates and stuff. So, thank you very much. So here's some stuff just to get started. So this is pregnancy rate. So we staged them as we did them. So that's the AI is the blues and the reds are the bulls. So and this is the proportion empty. So there we got 16.2 versus 18.8 in the end, 24 versus 20, 22 and a half, 24, blah blah. What's more interesting is when they start calving. So I don't have the dystocia stuff in that, but I've got the calving distribution. So here's farm A. So what do you notice on it? So here's the due date right here. So this is when they're supposed to calve. This is 283 days, right? The red is the AI. So what do you got here? You got your estrus in its normal distribution. You got your gap, and then you got your next estrus, and then a bit of a gap, and then it starts to kind of spread out. The bulls are just doing what bulls do. 5% come on heat per day if they're cycling. They get 60% of those pregnant, so you get 3% per day. And then the next 21 days, you get 1% per day on average, and then less and less. Does that make sense? Pretty cool. So this is another way of looking at that. Let's look at that as a survival curve. So here you go. Does this make more sense to you guys? So this is the cumulative pregnancies. So going up to 100% in both. So here's the day of the breeding date. So as you can see, we are shifting a lot of these girls this way. So if I'm joining these heifers, fixed time AI, and putting them back 21 days, I'm moving a lot of my pregnancies. See how there's a lot of them there over to that side. It's actually the same on that one, but you get the point of it. We're shifting them to the left, which is going to give us more kilograms of beef at the end of the go and get more girls ready to cycle earlier. Farm B, so that's his survival curve. So again, if you were to come into there and have a look 21 days into the mating. So as you can see, we're shifting everything to the left. Calving farm C, so this is a small producer. So again, the AI is shifted to the left. Farm D, shifted to the left. Oh, and also I forgot to point out this other bit. Did you see the bit on the bottom? So here's the advantage that we got. So the bulls, on average, calved 11.5 days after the due date. The heifers, 5.3. So we brought them forward on that particular farm 6.2 days. On this farm, we brought them forward an average of 14 days, so 2 weeks advantage from integrating AI. So we AI'd them at the front and put them with the same bulls as the rest of the girls. Here we got another 10 days that we shifted them forward. On the last farm, we brought them forward 9 days. So these 9 days, that's 9 kilos. And in this calf crop. But hopefully what it also translates to, and this is where we're going to follow them up in subsequent conception rate, hopefully it will mean more pregnancies the second time we look at these girls. So this is where we're trying to encapsulate and capture this information so that we can say, this is the intervention. This is what it costs to AI your heifers. This is the value. And if we show that it's not that valuable, we'll publish it in MLA and no one will AI. But I know that everyone that I've started AI in foreign esperance, except for a handful of people, they keep doing it. They get addicted to it. They love it. Once they see it, it's like Gabe said. It's a great way to work. Then you can spend really good money on really good backup bulls as well. So here's the, that's his calving survival curve. So again, shifting it to the left, the proportion that are pregnant. So by day 0, we already had almost 70% of them have already hit the ground. Does that make sense to you guys? So at day 0, we got 70% of the calves already on the ground from the AI, versus in the bulls, we only got 20%. You guys understand them? And there's the total cumulative pregnancies, so about 300 in each group. So by day 0, we've already got 70% of them calves on the ground by the due date, and in the bull covered, on average, we were about 30-some%. Pretty neat stuff. Little bonus slide, this was Cliff Lambs. So Cliff took over the University of Florida's beef herd. There were Santas and a few other bits and pieces, and if you look at the graphs up there, you've got the different years. So when he started, it was a 4-month joining, and that was the calving distribution and the survival curve. And what he did is he said, rightio guys, we're going to start AIing the heifers and AIing the cows. They all get one crack at AI. And initially, he'd do a couple rounds of AI on the cows based on when they calved. He'd wait till they were at least 60 days postpartum before he'd drop semen in them. And what he's done over time is he's shifted it forward. Now, when he started this at the University of Florida, the workers said, geez, Cliff, we don't want to do that. That sounds like a lot of work. And he said, well, I think it's going to make you money, meaning we're going to get more out of the calves. And so how about, if we do it, you guys can spend the money that we earn. So here's what they found. So in 2006, their pregnancy rate on a 4-month calving was 81%. By the time they got to 2013, they got up to 93%. This was a 4-month calving window. This is a 9-week calving interval. Or sorry, 9 times 7, 10-week calving interval. Pretty cool, eh? Mean calving date on the Julian calendar, he brought it from day 80 down to day 38.7. That's cool, eh? What else? the value in the calves because they weighed more. And these guys got to spend this money. So he said by about here when they started making more money, so they all got to drive new pickups and get new gators and stuff, then they were into it. $170 extra per calf at turnoff and a shorter joining worth 50 grand for the farm. $4 a kilo in the US. We're at $3. So that works out to $120 more per calf by doing 1 round of AI on the heifers, 1 round of AI on the cows, using that progesterone, the Q-mate, to stimulate those animals to get them out of lactation line, just to drag them forward, continually pull their pants up. Pretty cool stuff. So the bovine TE exam, a TE exam for a cow is the earlier she calves, that's the higher her TE score. The earlier they calve as a 3-year-old, the better cow they're going to be. These are your future employees. Get them to calve early without trouble or trauma. Get them on a rising plan of nutrition. And you don't just pick the best heifers. Quit trying to pick the best heifers unless you're a seed stock producer with breed plan figures. Let the mating program pick them. Build these girls. Get them done, because the best employees work for us. They calve early. They improve our genetics. A few more bits and pieces. Join more heifers than you do already. Join them short and early. Let it pick them out. Preg test early. Find those dull bludgers and get them gone. Calve with feed if you can. I'm a big fan of weaning early. That's my son on the cover of the Cattle Vets. That's my other fella, keep breeding. Finally got a heifer, excellent. Got another one on the way. These things are kind of cool. The main reason I put them in there, I've got a property where there's a landing strip on it. When the calves get out on the landing strip, the guy gets pretty aggro, so we put those in the calves and then we wean them a week later, and geez, they're quiet, but if my son comes home looking like that, I'm gonna wean his ass. So, I forgot my thank you slide. Thank you very much, Vetakino. Thank you guys for having a listen. Thank you, Gabriel Bowe. And I'll get the heck out of your way.